Hello there, my quiet friend. Welcome to Calm Warrior Tales for Sleep. You are safe now. As you lie down tonight, let your body sink into the stillness of this moment. Feel the air around you soften, as if the world is gently closing its eyes with you. Let your breath become a soft, steady rhythm, guiding you deeper into comfort, deeper into peace. There are some stories that drift to us like ocean mist. Quiet stories, carried not by fame, but by devotion. Stories whispered through the ages, found not in grand halls of heroes, but in the quiet, windswept corners of the world. And in one such story, far from the bustling cities, on a rocky island battered by wind and sea, a young girl once stood alone, holding a lantern against the relentless, howling storm. She was not a hero in the way history often remembers. No shining armor, no thunderous speeches, no medals gleaming under spotlights. Just a pair of tired hands, calloused by work, and a heart that refused to let the light go out, even when despair threatened to extinguish everything. Tonight, let us journey back to the edge of the world, where the silence is broken only by the timeless roar of waves, and a single, unwavering flicker of light kept hope alive for every soul drifting in the dark. Let the rhythm of the waves and the steadfastness of her spirit lull you into a profound, healing slumber. Maine Story 1, Part 1. The Edge of the World, a life defined by the sea. Imagine a place where the world seems to end, where the land shrinks to a mere whisper, and the vast, untamed ocean stretches endlessly in every direction. This was Matinicus Rock, little more than a scatter of harsh granite stone, barely half an acre wide, rising stubbornly from the cold, turbulent Atlantic waters off the coast of Maine. No trees dared to take root in its shallow soil, constantly lashed by salt spray. No shops offered respite or comfort. No roads led anywhere but back to the relentless sea. Just the raw, untamed roar of the waves, a constant, primal symphony that defined every waking and sleeping moment. And towering above it all, a silent sentinel against the elements, stood the Lighthouse, a sturdy, unyielding monument to human perseverance. This isolated, formidable outpost was home to the Burgess family. In the early 1850s, when Abbie Burgess was just 14 years old, her father, Samuel Burgess, a man of quiet strength and deep responsibility, accepted the demanding position of lighthouse keeper here. With his wife, who had been ailing for some time, and their 4 children, young Abbie and her 3 younger sisters, ranging in age from 7 to 12, they left the relative familiarity of the mainland to embrace a life defined by the sea, by duty, and by an almost unimaginable solitude. Their previous home had been near a bustling harbor, full of the sounds of trade and human connection. Now, their world was bounded by rock and water. Their only regular visitors, the seabirds that nested in the crags and the occasional supply boat, often delayed by weather for weeks. Life on Matinicus Rock was simple, yet profoundly hard. Their existence was governed by the merciless rhythms of the ocean and the unyielding demands of the lighthouse. The lighthouse was not merely their workplace, it was their very world, the focal point of their existence, demanding constant vigilance. Every chore, every moment, every breath seemed tied to its rhythmic beacon, a silent clock marking their days. Even the simple act of fetching water was a dangerous trek to the cisterns, often slick with ice or spray. Each day, Abbie rose before the sun, her small silhouette often visible against the pre-dawn glow. She fetched water from the rain barrels, carefully rationing every drop, understanding its preciousness on an island devoid of fresh springs. She fed the small flock of hardy chickens they kept in a small, weathered wooden coop, their clucking a rare, familiar sound in the vast quiet. And with practiced hands, she helped polish the gleaming brass in the light tower, the metal warm beneath her touch, reflecting the promise of the coming light. She learned to trim the wicks, to clean the intricate lenses, to prepare the oil, mastering the delicate art of maintaining the light with a diligence beyond her years. Her father, recognizing her keen eye and steady hand, slowly, patiently taught her every intricate detail of the lighthouse's operation. But it was the nights she loved most. Those quiet, profound hours when the world outside vanished into an inky blackness, and the only sound was the ceaseless murmur of the sea. These were the moments she would climb the spiral stairs of the lighthouse tower, her own small lantern in hand, its soft glow dancing ahead of her, leading her upwards. Each step was a quiet communion with the duty she was learning to embrace. She would reach the top, the air thin and cold, to check the great glass lens, a marvel of engineering that gathered and magnified the light. From that vantage point, she could see nothing but water, endless, black, and wild. The horizon dissolved into a seamless void where sky met sea, a canvas of pure, unadulterated elemental power. The stars, unobscured by city lights, glittered with an intensity rarely seen. And yet, in that vast, empty expanse, she felt a profound sense of peace. For every beam the lighthouse cast into the darkness, a single, unwavering thread of light cutting through the vast unknown, it meant another ship, another soul, would find safe passage through the treacherous rocks, away from the hidden dangers that lay beneath the churning waves. She understood, with a wisdom beyond her years, the sacred trust placed in that light. It was more than glass and oil. It was a promise, kept faithfully, silently, to those who sailed the perilous seas. Her father, Samuel, a man of few words but deep conviction, had instilled this truth in her early on. He would often stand with her at the top of the tower, the wind whipping around them, and say, his voice steady against the roar of the sea, "Keeping the light isn't just a task, Abbie. It's a promise to those you'll never meet. A promise to the fishermen battling the waves, to the sailors crossing vast oceans. It's a silent guardian, a beacon of hope, and for many, the only thing standing between them and the crushing darkness of the sea. It is the very pulse of this island, Abbie, and it must never falter." She never forgot that. The weight of that promise, though unspoken in words, settled into her young heart, a profound sense of responsibility that would soon be tested in ways she could never have imagined. And it was that very promise that would be tested in the brutal, unforgiving winter of 1856. Part 2, The Storm Arrives. A world-turning, treacherous winter descended upon Matinicus Rock with a vengeance that year. It arrived not gradually, but with a sudden, chilling bite, as if the season itself was impatient to unleash its fury upon the small, defiant island. By mid-January, the skies over the remote outpost had turned a hard, pale gray, a vast, ominous canvas stretching from horizon to horizon, pressing down like a heavy, suffocating blanket. The wind, sharpened like a blade, whistling through every crack and crevice of the lighthouse, sighing mournfully around the rugged rocks, carrying with it the icy breath of the far north. And the waves, once a rhythmic lullaby, grew louder each night, transforming into monstrous, thunderous giants, pounding the island's edge with relentless force, as if trying to break it apart, to swallow it whole. The very foundations of the lighthouse trembled with each colossal impact, a constant, unsettling vibration. Supplies, which were always carefully rationed on the isolated rock, were now running dangerously low. The last vestiges of fresh milk had been consumed, the last spoonful of sugar gone. The flour barrels were empty, making even the simplest bread impossible. There was no salt to preserve what little fish they might catch, no fresh vegetables to stave off the creeping weariness. The meager stores of precious whale oil for the lighthouse lamp, the very lifeblood of their duty, were dwindling with alarming speed, a constant, nagging worry in Samuel Burgess's mind, a quiet dread that settled into the pit of his stomach. Samuel Burgess, Abbie's father, a man accustomed to making hard decisions, his face weathered by years of sea winds, was etched with deep concern. His wife's illness had worsened considerably, She was bedridden, racked with fever and a persistent, weakening cough. The lives of his family, fragile in this isolated existence, and the hundreds of unknown sailors who depended on his light, hung in the balance. He knew, with a heavy heart, that he couldn't wait any longer. He would have to cross back to the mainland for provisions, a desperate gamble against the growing ferocity of the sea, a journey he dreaded but knew was unavoidable. The journey was perilous, even on a calm day. 25 miles of icy, restless sea in a small wooden boat, a tiny speck against the immense, indifferent power of the Atlantic. The nearest mainland port was a distant smudge on the horizon, accessible only when the weather permitted, but there was no other choice. This was their lifeline, their only connection to the world of sustenance and medicine. Before he left, as the first angry gusts of the coming storm began to whip around the island, carrying the scent of salt and impending doom, he gathered his daughter near the cold stone lighthouse steps. He looked into her eyes that already seemed so much older than her 16 years, reflecting a quiet maturity forged by life on the rock and the responsibilities she already bore, and said, his voice strained by the wind and a father's deep apprehension, "Abbie, I don't know how long I'll be gone. This storm, it looks to be a bad one, perhaps the worst we've seen. The waves are already building, and the sky, it bodes ill. But promise me one thing. Promise me, no matter what happens, no matter how long I am away, you won't let the light go out." Abbie, her small frame, braced against the biting wind, met his gaze with an unwavering resolve that seemed to quiet the storm within her. She nodded, a silent, solemn vow passing between them, a bond forged in duty and trust. "I promise, Papa," she whispered, the words barely audible above the rising wind, yet carrying the weight of an unbreakable commitment. Her heart swelled with a mixture of fear for his journey and a fierce determination to uphold her end of the promise. And then he was gone. His small boat, a fragile wooden shell, disappeared over the tumultuous waves, swallowed by the gray, angry horizon, just as the heavy leaden clouds began to gather overhead, pressing down upon the island like a suffocating blanket. The last glimpse Abbie had was of his small, determined figure, diminishing into the vast, churning expanse, carrying their hopes and fears with him. That night, the storm came. Not in gentle gusts or passing squalls, but in colossal, relentless walls of wind and water, thick with sleet that stung the skin like tiny needles of ice, furious with a relentless, howling gale that seemed to scream its rage. It howled through the shutters of their small dwelling, rattling the hinges with violent force, threatening to rip the very doors from their frames, and sent monstrous sea spray crashing against the lighthouse glass, creating a constant, deafening roar, a terrifying symphony of destruction. The very air vibrated with the storm's fury, a primal force threatening to consume everything in its path, to wipe the tiny island off the face of the earth. Inside the small, drafty house, amidst the shaking walls and the shrieking wind, Abbie wrapped every blanket she could find around her mother, who was now barely conscious, her frail body burning with a debilitating fever. Her 3 younger sisters, their faces pale with fear, their small bodies trembling, huddled together by the stove, silent, their wide eyes fixed on Abbie, seeking reassurance she barely had to give, their innocent faces reflecting the terror of the storm. The weight of their fear, combined with the rising anxiety for her father, settled upon her small shoulders, a crushing burden she bore alone. But the light had to stay on. The promise echoed in her mind, a beacon in her own internal storm. She knew that out there, in the impenetrable darkness, there were ships and lives depending on her, unseen, unknown, yet profoundly connected by that single beam. So Abbie, her small lantern a tiny beacon in the swirling chaos, took a deep, steadying breath. She ignored the trembling in her hands, the fear coiling in her stomach, the ache already settling into her bones. She climbed the winding spiral stairs of the tower, each step an act of courage, a defiance against the growing despair. The stone steps were slick with sea spray that forced its way through cracks in the old stone, treacherous underfoot, threatening to send her tumbling. The wind fought her every movement, pushing against her, trying to tear her away from her duty, a physical manifestation of the storm's resistance. But she reached the top, her muscles aching, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her lungs burning with the effort. With methodical precision, born of hours of practice, she poured the precious whale oil into the lamps, watching the golden liquid fill the reservoirs, a symbol of the life she was preserving. She trimmed the wick with a steady hand, ensuring a clean, strong flame, clearing away the soot that threatened to dim its power. And then, with hands that trembled only slightly from cold and exhaustion, she polished the great glass lens, rubbing away the salt spray and condensation until it gleamed, watching her own reflection shimmer in its depths, a solitary figure against the vast, unforgiving night. Her breath fogged the cold glass, but her resolve was crystal clear. Outside, the world vanished in a swirling vortex of white and gray, a terrifying maelstrom of wind and sea, a chaotic symphony of nature unleashed. But from that tower, a single unwavering beam of light cut through the heart of the storm, a defiant testament to her promise, a steady pulse of hope in the vast churning darkness. It was a lifeline for those at sea, and for Abbie herself, a confirmation of her enduring will. She kept the promise, not just that night battling exhaustion and fear, her young heart pounding with adrenaline and determination, but the next, and the next, and the next. Days blurred into a relentless cycle of duty and worry, indistinguishable from one another. Then a week, then two. Still, her father did not return, lost somewhere in the merciless grip of the storm, his fate unknown, adding another layer of anxiety to Abbie's burden. Still, the storm did not stop, its fury unabated, an endless assault on their fragile sanctuary. And still, through it all, against all odds, the light did not go out. Number 3, Part 3, The Keeper of Light, A Quiet Resilience. Abbie had never known time to move so slowly, each tick of the clock an eternity, each passing hour a test of endurance that seemed beyond human capacity. The days blurred into an indistinguishable succession, a relentless cycle of howling wind, biting cold, and an almost suffocating silence, punctuated only by the thunderous crash of waves against the rock, a constant booming reminder of their isolation. She marked the passing hours not by the sun or the moon, which were often obscured by the perpetual gloom of the storm clouds, but by the urgent, unyielding tasks she had to do, and the steady, rhythmic flicker of the lighthouse beam stretching across the vast, dark sea. Her life became a solitary, unwavering dance with duty and survival, a testament to raw, unadulterated willpower. She meticulously fed the small flock of hardy chickens they had managed to keep, though many had succumbed to the cold and the scarcity of food, their small, lifeless forms a constant, stark reminder of the fragility of existence on the rock. She braved the treacherous, wind-whipped shores to collect bits of driftwood for the stove, each splinter a precious commodity against the bone-chilling cold that seeped into every crack and crevice of their small, drafty dwelling. And she rationed what meager food they had left with a precision born of desperation. A handful of cornmeal, a few shriveled potatoes, and stale bread that had to be soaked in hot water to be edible. Each mouthful a silent prayer for sustenance, a desperate effort to keep her family's strength from ebbing away entirely. But most of all, she tended the light. This was her sacred charge, the heaviest burden and the greatest purpose. 3 times a day, every single day, without fail, she climbed the narrow, winding staircase of the tower. Sometimes in the pale, weak daylight, when the storm momentarily abated, offering a fleeting glimpse of the churning gray-green sea. More often, in the full, terrifying grip of the storm, the wind trying to rip her from the steps, the spray coating everything in a layer of ice, making each ascent a perilous climb. She would carry a heavy can of whale oil, its metal sides slick with frost, its weight a constant ache in her young arms, her muscles burning with strain. She'd carefully refill the lamps, the golden liquid a symbol of the life she was preserving, watching it settle into the reservoirs with a quiet reverence. With focused precision, she'd trim the wick, ensuring a clean, bright flame, clearing away the soot that threatened to dim its power, understanding that even the smallest neglect could have catastrophic consequences. And then, with a soft cloth, she'd polish the great glass lens until it gleamed, free of salt and condensation, even when her fingers went numb, so cold they felt like stone. Yet she knew her touch was essential for the light to truly pierce the darkness. At night, the tower swayed in the relentless wind, a mighty mast against the tempest, groaning and creaking with the force of the gale, its very structure seeming to breathe and sigh with the struggle. And still, she stood at the top, a lone sentinel against the vast, terrifying expanse, her gaze fixed on the single defiant beam stretching over the black, churning water. She imagined sailors on distant ships, exhausted, cold, battling the same storm, their faces grim with worry, their hopes fading with each passing hour. She pictured their profound relief, their silent gratitude, as they would suddenly see that light, a steady, unwavering beacon in the chaos, and know they were not lost. They had a guide, they had hope. Her father's words echoed in her mind, a mantra against the roaring wind, a whisper of purpose in the tumultuous night. It's not just light, Abbie, it's life. Inside the small house below, her mother's condition worsened with each passing day. The fever raged, her coughing became more frequent and labored, a rasping, desperate sound. There were moments of frightening confusion when her mother didn't recognize Abbie, calling out for her father or distant memories from a more peaceful life, her mind clouded by illness. Abbie barely slept, snatching only brief moments of restless doze, her senses always acutely alert to her mother's shallow breathing or the soft, frightened cries of her younger siblings, whose small hands often sought hers in the darkness. Every few hours, she boiled what little water they had for steam, trying to ease her mother's congestion, the warm vapor a temporary comfort. She sang softly to calm her frightened siblings, her voice a fragile lullaby against the storm's roar, inventing stories of faraway lands and warm, sunny days, trying to paint a picture of hope for them. And then, with a deep, weary sigh, she would return to the lighthouse, driven by a duty that transcended her own exhaustion, a responsibility too heavy for her young years, yet one she bore with an incredible grace. And still, the storm roared on. It was a living entity, a relentless, unyielding force that mocked their fragile existence, a constant, malevolent presence. She stopped counting the days. Time lost its meaning, blurring into a single, endless struggle. There was only wake, tend the sick, climb the tower, refill the oil, trim the wick, polish the lens, keep the flame alive. Her world had shrunk to the rhythmic glow of the light and the desperate needs of her family, a microcosm of survival against overwhelming odds. The solitude was immense, a heavy cloak that wrapped around her, broken only by the sound of the wind and the faint, urgent calls of her sisters. But in that solitude, a deep well of resilience was forged within her, a strength that pulsed with the steady rhythm of the light itself. One particularly brutal morning, as the storm intensified anew, while carrying a heavy can of oil up the slick, cold steps, Abbie slipped. Her knee struck the unforgiving stone with a sickening thud, sending a searing pain up her leg that made her gasp. The can, her precious cargo, tumbled, and the golden vital oil spilled across the treacherous stairs, vanishing into the cracks, a heartbreaking loss of their dwindling supplies. She sat there, hunched and gasping, the cold rain blowing in through a cracked window, mocking her despair, chilling her to the bone. For a moment, just a fleeting, desperate moment. She wanted to cry, to simply lie down and let the tears come, to surrender to the crushing weight of her exhaustion, her fear, her profound loneliness, to the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. She was just 16 after all, and the burden was immense. But she didn't. She couldn't. The image of her father's worried face, the ships lost at sea, the flickering light of hope, it all flashed before her eyes. The promise she had made. With a strength that came from deep within, a strength she didn't know she possessed until this very moment, she pushed herself up. Her knee throbbed, but her resolve was stronger. She retrieved the empty can. She carefully wiped the precious oil from the floor, salvaging every possible drop, her movements methodical despite the pain. She climbed the remaining steps, each one a testament to her fierce determination. She lit the lamp, and the light never went out. It burned on, a defiant flame against the storm, a testament to her unyielding spirit, a beacon against the chaos, a symbol of hope that transcended the pain and the fear, a promise kept. Part 4. When the calm returns, a light that never fades. Then one morning, after what felt like an eternity, after what was indeed nearly a month of relentless, unyielding fury, a profound stillness descended upon Matinicus Rock. The wind stopped, not all at once, not with a sudden, dramatic silence, but slowly, like a breath being held, then finally, gently released into the quiet air, a soft sigh of relief from the very atmosphere itself. The incessant roar of the sea softened, mellowing into a rhythmic, comforting murmur, a gentle lapping against the shore. The oppressive, leaden sky began to clear, slowly, hesitantly, like a curtain being drawn back, revealing vast stretches of clear, pale blue, growing brighter with each passing minute. And light, true sunlight, warm and golden, returned to Matinicus Rock, casting long, peaceful shadows across the battered landscape, illuminating the weariness in Abbie's eyes, but also the triumph in her spirit. Abbie stood at the very top of the tower, her hands resting gently on the cool, clean glass of the lens, her gaze sweeping across the vast expanse of the now calm sea. Her eyes, red-rimmed from lack of sleep, scanned the horizon, taking in the world reborn. Below her, the island lay battered but unbroken, its granite heart having withstood the onslaught, a testament to its own endurance and to the unwavering spirit of the young woman who had stood guard over it. The house, though weathered, with telltale signs of the storm's fury, still stood. The lighthouse, her constant companion and silent partner in vigil, still stood tall and proud, its light still burning, though the sun now made it pale. And inside, her mother, though still weak, was breathing more easily, the fever finally breaking, the worst of her illness having passed. Her sisters, their fear slowly receding, were playing softly, their quiet chatter and laughter a sound she hadn't truly heard in weeks. A melody of innocence returned. Her family had survived. That afternoon, as she continued her vigil at the top of the tower, a speck appeared on the horizon, a tiny dot that grew slowly, steadily. Her heart quickened. It was a sail. Then, unmistakably, a boat cutting through the newly calm waters, a familiar shape growing larger with every minute. And finally, her father's face, etched with worry, worn by the long, perilous journey and the agonizing uncertainty. He rushed ashore, stumbling onto the familiar rocks, his heart pounding with fear, preparing himself for the worst, expecting disaster, expecting ruin, expecting to find his family broken, perhaps even the lighthouse extinguished. But the light was still shining, strong and clear, a beacon of defiance and triumph, a steady pulse against the fading daylight. And Abbie, his daughter, his brave, quiet girl, stood there, pale and thin but undeniably strong. She had become its unwavering keeper. Her face, though marked by exhaustion, radiated a quiet strength, a profound wisdom that had been forged in the crucible of the storm, a woman standing where a girl had once stood. The storm, relentless and brutal, had lasted nearly a month, a staggering 21 days of pure, unadulterated fury. For nearly 4 agonizing weeks, Abbie, barely more than a child, had kept the light burning, had meticulously cared for her sick mother, had protected her terrified younger siblings from the monstrous sounds and isolation, and had held the island together with nothing but an indomitable will and an extraordinary quiet courage. She had faced down the fury of nature and the crushing weight of solitude, the gnawing fear for her father's safety, the desperate rationing of food, emerging unbroken, a true calm warrior. Her actions were not born of a desire for glory, but of a simple, profound dedication to duty and love. Word of what she had done spread slowly, carried by passing ships and whispered among the fishing villages along the coast of Maine. A few lines appeared in a local newspaper, a brief, understated account of her heroism, but enough to capture the imagination of those who understood the sea. A letter of commendation, a formal recognition of her remarkable service, arrived from the Lighthouse board, acknowledging her extraordinary courage. But there were no grand parades, no shining medals, no elaborate ceremonies. Abbie never sought them. Her reward was the quiet knowledge that she had kept her promise, that the light had shone, and that countless lives had been saved because of her steadfastness, her unwavering vigil. This was her true legacy, etched not in stone, but in the safe passage of ships and the gratitude of unseen sailors. Years later, Abbie Burgess, still drawn to the rhythmic embrace of the sea and the quiet duty of the light, married a lighthouse keeper named Isaac Grant and returned to the sea, becoming the assistant keeper herself. She continued to serve faithfully, a testament to her lifelong devotion. She lived much of her life near the water, where beams still swept across the night, silent guardians against the darkness. She carried the quiet strength of Matinicus rock within her, a constant, enduring reminder of the storm she had weathered and the light she had kept burning through the longest, darkest nights. But those who sailed the treacherous coast of Maine, especially in the fierce, unforgiving winter, never forgot the light that never went out. Because someone, a young girl named Abbie Burgess, had once stood alone against the overwhelming power of the storm, and with nothing but a quiet heart and a steady hand, she made sure it didn't. Her legacy was not in monuments, but in the countless ships guided safely to shore, and the enduring power of a promise kept, a light that shone from a solitary, brave heart. 3. Emotional reflection. As the echoes of Abbie Burgess's journey gently fade into the quiet night, may you feel a profound sense of peace settling over you, a quiet reassurance that permeates your very being. Her story reminds us that sometimes the strongest people in history aren't the ones who lead armies or stand on stages commanding attention. They are often the quiet ones, the unsung heroes, the forgotten ones, whose courage shines brightest not under the glare of public eye, but in the solitude of profound duty and unwavering commitment. They are the ones who tend to small flames, not for their own glory, but so that others, unseen and unknown, may find their way through the darkness. Their impact is often silent, yet far-reaching and eternal. Abbie Burgess was never seeking glory. She was simply keeping a promise to her father, to the ships navigating the treacherous waters, their crews depending on her unseen vigilance, to the vast, indifferent sea itself, which demanded unwavering respect. And in that lighthouse, with cold hands and steady steps, through nights of terror and days of endless solitude, she became a keeper of life, one flickering beam at a time. Her resolve, her quiet endurance, was a testament to the extraordinary power that resides within an ordinary heart, transformed by circumstance and an unwavering spirit. As you rest tonight, may her story remind you, you don't have to shine the brightest, or be the loudest, or command the most attention to make a profound difference in the world or in your own life. You don't need grand gestures to show your strength. Sometimes the most powerful act is simply to keep the light from going out, to hold steady, to endure. to carry your own quiet flame, even when the storms rage all around you, even when the path ahead seems obscured by darkness. For even the smallest light, held steadfastly, can illuminate the way for yourself and for others. Let this gentle wisdom settle deep within you, soothing your mind and calming your heart as you prepare to embrace the restorative embrace of sleep. Vor, body scan plus outro. Now, if you haven't already, allow your eyes to soften and gently close. Let any remaining tension drain away from your eyelids, from around your eyes, as if the day's light is slowly fading from your sight. Let the breath in your chest grow slower, deeper, calmer. Feel its gentle rhythm, a steady, comforting tide flowing through you, mirroring the quiet lapping of waves against a peaceful shore. Picture yourself on a quiet island, not Martinique's rock in its storm, but an island of peace within your own being. Feel a gentle sea surrounding you, its soft murmurs a lullaby, and imagine a warm, steady light flickering somewhere above. Not harsh, not blinding, just constant, comforting, a gentle glow of safety and stillness, a beacon guiding you towards deeper rest. Begin to bring your awareness to the very top of your head, and with a soft sigh, let go of any tension there. Feel your scalp relax, your forehead smooth out, erasing any lines of worry or thought. Soften your temples, your cheeks, your jaw. Let your mouth soften, your lips parting just slightly, releasing any unconscious clenching. Feel your entire face soften, becoming utterly serene. Let that sense of profound softness move slowly, gently down, into your neck. Feel any stiffness melting away, allowing your head to feel heavy and completely supported by your pillow, cradled in perfect comfort. Move into your shoulders, imagine them dropping, releasing their burdens, melting down away from your ears, becoming wide and relaxed, as if heavy weights have been lifted. Allow this soothing release to flow into your arms and fingers. Feel them grow heavy and still, completely at ease. Imagine all the day's tasks, all its efforts, all its reaching and holding, simply drifting away from your hands, leaving them light and unburdened, resting effortlessly at your sides. Breathe in and feel a wave of tranquil peace rise through your chest, expanding your heart space with a sense of calm and well-being. Breathe out and release anything you don't need tonight. Any worries, any lingering anxieties, any resistance to rest. Let them drift away like clouds on a calm sky, dissolving into the vastness of the night. Let your chest relax deeply. Feel your stomach soften, releasing any tightness, rising and falling gently with each soft breath, a comforting rhythm that soothes your core. Let your back sink deeper and deeper into the supportive surface beneath you, feeling completely held, completely grounded, completely at peace, as if you are merging with the comfort of your bed. Feel the calm flow into your hips, letting them soften and spread, releasing any tension they might be holding. Allow this warmth to move down into your legs, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your shins, feeling them grow heavy, relaxed, and utterly still, as if weighted down by profound rest. And finally, into your feet, your ankles, your arches, your toes, feeling them release all their effort, all their walking and standing, becoming soft, warm, and deeply at rest, until your entire body feels as still and safe as the solid stone beneath that lighthouse, a beacon of unyielding peace, rooted firmly in calm. Every cell in your body is now resting, renewing, restoring itself for the gentle dawn of tomorrow. And as the beam of light slowly turns through the night, a quiet guardian, a constant promise, you rest, you drift, you are safe, you are held. Good night, dear keeper of your own light.